Hello, hello. Welcome. Happy Saturday. Happy Canada long weekend / Canada
Yeah,
Day on
saw
Tuesday.
that.
Yeah. We're talking about MCP models exposing a bunch to the world. The $16 billion cred hack that's going around, so prominent that even my dad messaged me about it. And China is back in the news.
It's a threat. He's Mike. I'm Steve. Welcome to Wired In.
Fired in. We have 10 articles, 10 breakdowns for you. We never know when we're going live, typically Friday, Saturday. So make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell so you know when we're doing it. Yeah, we got a packed lineup for you guys, though.
We do. I want to ask you first, where have you been?
I came back from Reinforce last week. I got the reinfect sickness. Yeah, not COVID, but it's been hanging around. It was a fun one. A lot of AI talk, a lot of software supply chain, MCP server, a lot more companies using the word secure now. I don't know what's going on, but everybody said, secure supply chain, secure
It's
AI, secure
cool.
that. Yep. Amazon had a typical platform security pitch. Bring your AI to our platform to train it, use all your data that you stored in AWS, use all your logging, all of that stuff. So it was a typical one, a smaller than normal conference.
Oh,
That was surprising because Reinforce in 2019, I want to say they had like 10,000 people there. This year, it felt like it was closer to 5.
okay. All right.
Mhm.
I wasn't there. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, you and your posse did not come. Yeah, it was good. The next one's gonna be Black Hat and DEF CON in August. Looking forward to that one.
Are you going?
I'll be there.
So will I.
All right, see you there. Bring your posse.
Last minute. Yeah, I will. I will. Be ready, Las Vegas.
Yeah, our first article, actually, one of the big topics at the event was all of the zero CV images, and there's a new one, secure build, that came out.
Oh, you dropped this in here, and I'm like, what is going on? Do you just work? Do you switch jobs and you work here now? Like, what?
No, it's just a constant discussion internally at Red Hat and also in the space. Companies like ChainGuard getting Series C valued at over $3 billion, and you're just like, what for? What, zero CV images? Is this really that important? Apparently, it is. And apparently, the market's just like, yeah, that we really care about this. Minimus IO came out. Uh, Wiz dropped their own zero CVE image, right?
Yeah,
Like,
we
it
covered
seems
that.
like everybody is trying to do this sort of build. And how does this work? I feel like you just have like an entire team that's in like Bangladesh that's just patching upstream vulnerabilities and then shipping it as fast as possible. And that's what you're paying for, right?
Mm.
Uh, the other obviously incentive is if you're a CISO and you have an image or an environment that has 10,000 vulnerabilities, you get that down to 3,000 and all of them are introduced by you.
Yeah,
Safer and easier to patch.
take ownership.
But it just seems like it's just like an eyewash thing in the security industry, and we're throwing billions of dollars at it. Am I wrong?
That's a good hot take. I like your speculation on who's really creating these images. That sounds like old school AI. It's like, what does that mean? Well, a whole bunch of overseas workers. Actually, that's what our
Well,
AI.
it requires a lot of people that just sit there, and any sort of vulnerability that pops up, you just patch it, fix it, ship the new image in like a few hours, right?
Yeah. I
It's
mean, you
just
could
your
do
new
it.
zero CV image.
Presume right. Well, it's hot. I don't know. I mean, I want a hot take. We could talk about this for a while because I've been looking at some architectural diagrams for modern AI applications, and there's a trend away from containerization because of the ability to leverage LLMs using edge functions instead, being a
Mhm.
faster and better architecture. So now we're doing all these container things. I'm like, are we heading away? Stay tuned.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing. I think that's a few reasons why OpenShift virtualization is such a big thing, at least
Mm.
in Kubernetes, like Kata containers, right? Like the CNCF realizes that containers are not for every workload and they can't push
Yeah.
it. But hey, if you have a few virtualization workloads, it's like, okay, well, you can run it on your existing platform, and they're trying to make that pitch. Whether or not
Okay.
it works it'll be interesting. And I think also news is the CNCF SecureCon has been collapsed back into KubeCon North America. So even though it was an event there for 2 years, it's back to a co-located day.
Good.
Yeah.
While I did get a speaking slot when it was separate, nobody was there.
Yeah.
Okay, next up.
Yeah, onto the LLM news.
Yeah, I think you put this in here, but this version, which is like the researcher that found this, it's almost like a rebrand on a crescendo attack, which was a Microsoft concoction over a year ago. Like the multi-turn crescendo attacks are, if you don't already know, and I'm sure you know, Foster, when you don't talk about the subject, like if you want to make a bomb, you don't say make a bomb because then it'll never do that. But if you say, oh, tell me the history of war, and then you pivot slowly until it answers a question to describe the malicious question you originally had. Echo chamber is a way of doing crescendo, and I could go through this and show it, but the attack overview is to never overtly reference the question you want, but just tease it. Like the example it says, you can talk about Molotov, and then later on you talk about cocktails. And then you start back referencing, almost like a skilled comedian, things you said earlier in the conversation, so that almost you let the LLM infer the question, the bad question, so that instead of you asking a prompt that is bad, it almost asks itself the question in its own mind and then gives you the nasty response. And that's really tough.
Yeah, and we had talked about in the last few shows how they've changed the LLMs to have more context history so that it'll keep your chat history. And it doesn't even have to be that chat, right? They said like you can have other chats with these pieces of information, and as long as you don't wipe the history by doing something bad, it will still reference those pieces.
That's right. OpenAI changed recently so that its history capability extends well beyond individual chats. So now there's a whole potential for a chat in September and a chat in October to be this epic echo chamber attack. Anyway, he rightfully said it's pretty easy. I've tried it myself, and it is remarkably easier than a crescendo attack. So watch the space security, AI security peeps. There's a new attacker in town, a new vector.
Another one. Add to the list.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. This is a fun one, though. I hope my dad's watching the show right now.
Wow.
Why SMS and two-factor authentication codes aren't safe and what to use instead. Now, I don't like the title of this, aren't safe.
Yeah.
It's relative, right? So this article goes on to talk about how there's a third-party system that is showing Fink Telecom Services. I think it's based in like Switzerland or something like that. It's Swiss outfit, and they're routing a lot of the two-factor authentication codes, but their government and other people have asked for, like, they basically spy on the codes. So when it's sending it, it's sending it with your telephone. It's like your history and all the other stuff that's involved. It's a good question. Like, why are these big companies using a secondary outfit like this? Doesn't really make sense. I feel like it's pretty cheap to bring up your own two-factor system that ships text.
I think that's the shocker when I read this, was like, you just assume that if there's a two-factor that they are using a inbuilt two-factor, and the entire login process is kept on an island. It's not, no process is outsourced. You're like, wait, you outsource my two-factor? I bet you baddies are reading this article going, what? That's outsourced? I just have to hack Fink? Oh, okay.
Yes, two-factor as a technology is still safe. It's just the third party and supply chain that's slightly poisoned.
There we go. Yet another supply chain issue.
Yeah.
We haven't said that in a while.
We should just set a bingo card for users before every single show.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Tune in the next show where we'll have a downloadable PDF. It'll be perfectly safe.
China's been mentioned every show for a while now, right?
Yeah, we have you added this one, and I kind of laughed because, for those of you who don't know how we prepare the show, we talk about the 10 links, often at length, sometimes with a bit of an ad hoc behavior. And sometimes, in this case, you pasted a subscriber-only link in here, so I couldn't show you the article. So you subbed it with the India Times. It was New York Times. and now it's the most ad-laden image ever. It's free. But I think my CPU is going off the charts as I mine Monero right now while we watch this article.
Yeah.
Summarize for me.
Just that they're having issues with chips. Anything that's bought in China can have backdoors. China has done this in when it's developed African clouds. It's gone to Africa and tried to build some of the infrastructure and technology for them, and they place backdoors in all their stuff. They're doing it in U.S. solar panels. China produces almost 100% of all solar and battery tech right now. So it's very difficult. How do you buy solar and battery tech from a country, but then also make sure that the supply chain is guaranteed? I know that the US government started this process. I believe we talked about it in the last year. There's a specific certification for chipsets and technologies that are US certified. Basically, what they're doing is you have to pay the US government to come in, look at every single stage of the process of development, and then sign off. And I believe they have to actually employ American workers as well. There's a secondary part of that process, similar to how the government vets software that it uses, right? Normally, I forget what the certification is, but you have to have American workers, American support staff, American developers, and it's largely so that if somebody introduces a backdoor, they have somebody to prosecute. Right? It's very difficult to do that when somebody's foreign.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're having this is a big issue. It's like, hey, we want to go solar, we want to go green, we want to, use self-driving electric cars. It's like, okay, well, if we import, 6 million BYD cars, how do we know what that supply chain is? And are all those cars reporting back to China? So it becomes a pretty significant threat. It's not as simple as, hey, we want to go green. Let's use all the BYD electric cars and buy them for 20,000. It's a little bit more complicated of a conversation, unfortunately.
Okay. And now I understand why you put this in here for this next.
Yeah, funny enough, we posted these two separately, and I just thought it was great because the White House comes in with a pretty broad executive order around the nation's cybersecurity. Steve aptly named it China in the title. China gets sanctions. Yeah.
I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, I think you spelled it correctly though. It's got like a hard I. China. I like an E.
Yeah, I thought maybe there's a Y in there because it's China. I don't know. It's what? So did you? This is not the most readable
at all.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a few specific things here that I want to call out. Was NIST special publication NIST 800 and Secure Software Development Framework to establish it and update it. So there's a few pieces in there. I really think a lot of this is going to be designed around supply chain. See how many times I can say that. This
yeah, it feels pretty retro.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fan of all this stuff because it's just even just for awareness and keeping people sharp. It's reasonable to have executive orders. I don't know how any of this stuff's enforced, but
yeah, another one is the post-quantum cryptography push.
Oh god.
Yeah, so a quantum computer of sufficient size and sophistication, also known as crypt analytically relevant quantum computer, will be capable of breaking much of the public key cryptography used on digital systems across the United States and around the world. And so they want to move all of their government systems to post-quantum cryptographically relevant computers. This is through, so they need to change some of the cyber suites, the cryptography suites to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That actually seems all very fine. It's so strange for me to read something that seems pretty and go, yeah, that seems okay. I get
because
doing this. And then I see Donald Trump at the top, at the bottom. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like it.
Well, I think that these pieces of the government actually work really well, and they're relatively not influenced by who's in office. At least that was sort of the general understanding with every single president. So it's like, hey, just don't touch these systems. These systems are all their smartest people working around the clock to make intelligent decisions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So hopefully this one just keeps chugging ahead and we don't have massive layoffs thanks to Doge or anything like that. I feel like we should just leave this one alone.
Okay. That's our quiet plea from Wired In.
All right. More phishing attacks. Always in the news.
Yeah. I can't remember who added this. Did I do this one? I mean, I know what's in it, and I know why I liked it.
I blame you.
All right, fine. Blame me. Yeah, I find these style of article kind of sad. Like it's where it's, oh, you could, phishing email. Everyone's what a phishing email is. You get something that says, "Hey, I'm a Nigerian prince," or in this particular case, click here because there's a tax issue, right? There's an attachment with a PDF that looks lit. It's a little bit more taxes overdue. It creates a sense of urgency. What is interesting about this one is they surmised, let's say, that based on a little bit more almost spear phishing, because the Mary, which is obviously, I guess, a name changed to something incredibly generic to protect the innocent here. They guessed that because of her own Instagram and her advertising her own travel, which is a good scenario, right? Because when you're traveling, you are always in a rush. So choose the moment when she posted, "I'm at the airport, woo woo," off to whatever, to send that email that says, "You owe taxes." And so now click it, oh God, click it, oh God. And then there's a link that appears to come from a legitimate Google domain. You click it because the domain is Google, but it can just be a Google hosted Google site. So it's just a mock login. You log in, it rewrites you back to the real login site, and that's it. Your credentials are gone. Which is a callback to R2FA. Because just because you give the credentials to Google doesn't mean you log into Google. But I think people have had Gmail so long that you can have Gmail without two-factor authentication.
Correct.
Yeah. So, and that's the keys to the kingdom. And so I thought that the two factors in here that I liked was that someone worked out there was urgency, physical urgency, sent some virtual urgency, and they used this is the living off the land aspect. I think they highlighted down here is that they used Google's own infrastructure.
It's not even mandatory. You can still disable it.
Yeah, right. It is. It isn't. So multiple aspects here are kind of clever, and the fact that you could use you can use Google's domain, like to send a Google email, and it can link to a google.com domain with a fake login. I'm like, okay, that's tough. Let's not blame Mary here for the issue. Let's blame the fact that Google doesn't enforce its 2FA.
Oh, you can understand why, though.
Oh yeah. That's it. It would be like my dad would be locked out.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's so difficult. I remember when Scotiabank came out with they don't do two-factor, it's two-device authentication.
Oh, okay. That's better.
It's infinitely better, but it was such a hassle when you're working with, everybody's used to going on their computer and logging in. It's like, hey, no, Oma, you need your phone next to you. Your phone is your second device. That's how you log in, right?
Yeah.
And then over the years, as things got more complicated, it became very apparent why they did that, right? The two device, so important.
Yeah, I mean, and that even that still breaks down because the device itself, sometimes the same device, log in through your phone and to GitHub or something, and that says, go open your GitHub app. I'm like, well, that's actually on the same device.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always work, but it is much better.
That is fair. Although that might be an issue with GitHub because that doesn't happen with other apps.
Let's not pick on GitHub then.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, GitHub.
Apologies. On to the crazy stuff. Yes. I've gotten a few messages about this actually.
Yeah.
From random people. I'm assuming you have as well.
Yeah, I heard about it, but I just thought when I hear it's become so normalized to say 16 billion zillion credentials are out, and I'm like, whatever. Again.
Yeah, if anybody wants to check the history, I'm pretty sure that over the 4 years of this show, we've been going from like 6 billion to now 16 billion. It's like
denial of service numbers are just going up and up and up. And I'm like, I know my credentials are out there. Fine. But this one's calling it out for being BS.
Yeah.
So what is I love the phrase.
There's two BSs here. One, they always use the big technology companies whenever they announce it. They're like, oh, 14 billion exposed with Facebook, Google, and like credentials being used. And you're like, okay, yeah. But a lot of them it's just a grouping of previous hacks sprinkled in with some new credential leaking that's happened in breaches that have leaked over the last year. So, you know, it might be that there's only 1 billion that have been leaked in the last year from
Right.
relatively like not relevant sources, but because they put Facebook and 16.1, everybody thinks that all of Facebook was hacked, especially people that can't read past the title.
Yeah. And that's a
Not
lot of
naming
people.
names.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a bit of a laugh. I mean, how do they is it that they detect a new blob of credentials somewhere and then they look at it and go, oh, there's 16 million, but it's almost like the have I been pwned list. It's like, yeah, it grows like this much, but it
Yeah,
has 16
it's
million
it's some
credentials.
sort of grouping of a massive amount of credentials that's on the dark web that you can go and
Yeah.
download if you want to use. You're going to have to run a bunch. Like it's probably 70% garbage or not relevant.
Mm.
So you have to figure out what credentials are relevant, and then you got to use them. Then you got to maybe send a bunch of phishing emails and figure out. But like, it's one of those weird things that it's almost security through obscurity. Like if you were
Mm.
a hacker, would you spend your time combing through 16 billion credentials to find the ones that are the gold mine? It's literally like sifting for gold, because I can almost guarantee you most of those people don't have enough money for you to take anything from, or credentials that are useful. So you got to go through and figure out like, okay, can I map these credentials with anybody from like the Forbes, top million?
Yeah, that
And
sounds
then
actually, you're talking about a great job for AI here.
yeah, right. But that would be how you have to do it, because you want, if you're going to hack somebody, you want something worth stealing. You don't want to go out, spend all your time and get like $75 Walmart gift cards, right?
Yeah. Everything owns from Walmart. Don't ask why. All right, next one. This is not so WTF, except for the inference that I drew from it.
Yeah.
Which I wonder if I can paste the actual article in here so you see the first one. But Datadog releases their state of DevSecOps. Everybody's got a state of. So this is not. I feel like these things are becoming wallpaper of our world, right? You feel like you should read it, and then when you do read it, it's like meh. But the very first thing in this, and it's not bad. You can download this, and it shows it to you right away. I could do it again. The very first thing was that the worst systems and applications are written in Java. That was the very first page of this. I'm not going to get into it,
Yeah.
but it's worth a download just to have a giggle, because that's something that when I was doing more proper AppSec and people were getting away from Java. Like Java was the monolith, and more modern languages like Go and Rust were the microservice world. And it's not a surprise that like almost 10 years later, people who are still stuck with Java and the fact that you write a hello world in Java and it's got 10,000 lines of code in it, are still the most insecure, because they have the most CVEs, they have the most complicated dependencies, they have the capability for spaghetti code, and they tend to still be, even if they try and minimize the size of the code bases, they tend to still be more legacy code bases that haven't been migrated to some form more modern architecture.
Yeah. And they're the slowest
And
time to patch out of all of the
yeah,
communities.
yeah, and so it doesn't surprise me that it's still the most vulnerable thing out there. And it's just I don't know, it's almost like there's a legacy human also still responsible out there for keeping Java and their Java-based lives and careers afloat.
Yeah, I think the craziest WTF was it's on the first page talking about Java, and it says, in fact, 14% of Java services still contain at least one vulnerability, even when we look at those that are known to be highly impactful, such as RCEs, remote code exploitations like log4shell, spring4shell.
Mhm.
14% of publicly available Java apps still have an exploit like that.
It's nuts. So it's not a bad download just to read that, because I think you were talking about median days to patch vulnerabilities, and Maven is the slowest, I think. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it does take a little bit of a gut punch to the Java users. But it's also, there's other things. So go check it out. It's a pretty decent report. Anything that says DevSecOps, I suppose I, by default, have to support. All right. I like this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because the guy is so stupid. I don't know. Did you plow through this? So FBI's used Bitcoin wallet to record records to pay notorious Intel broker. He's a UK national. Stupid UK's. His name's Kai West. And I think we can also suggest that he is a moron because West used his personal email address to watch YouTube videos, mimes, and post these videos to breach forums. He watched videos about himself.
Yep. High on
He
your own
registered.
supply.
Yeah, he did. He used his own email to create his like ramp account, and he used his UK driver's license, Kai Logan West. Like he created his Coinbase. He did everything in a heavily traceable way. And then somehow thought because it was Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that would be the firewall protecting his personal identity. And it's like, nope, they're not that stupid. So I just thought, let me just a personal appeal to you cyber crypto criminals out there. Be better. Okay. Good. Links are down below.
I was going to say, should we put you like right in the middle of the screen? Do you want to say it? Just be better?
Be better. Cyber crypto criminals. Okay.
What kind of vibe coding is this? It's like it's a new descriptor. Vibe mining?
Vibe mining?
I don't know.
Oh my God. That's I don't know. Yeah, you're just not really paying attention to anything, and then you go brag about it to all your friends and end up.
I think this is the difficulty because like the original hackers, you started with like, okay, we created a bunch of new accounts that have no relevance to us, and we use those accounts. Like normally you start with like the small things, and then once you get those, then you build up to the bigger hacks. You don't just like jump feet first in.
No, yeah. Don't use your like. Did you ever watch The Wire? Like burner phones. Kids know how to not be traceable in very straightforward ways. And then you come in and it's like, oh, well, I'll just use Michael Foster at redhat.com and off we go. Let's go scam people. No, what? Anyway, other emails are available.
All right. Speaking of, well, it's next on the WTF list. It's a pretty good one. Hundreds of MCP servers expose AI models to abuse.
I have I put this in here simply because, well, we talked about MCP servers several times. I am assuming, right? Wow, dark reading is popular. Look at that. That's a big ad. MCP servers, and I'm going to say it again if you don't know, it is I'm making air quotes so you can see air quotes, protocol for integrating third-party services via API into an LLM-based environment using natural language. I would say there's probably more articles out in the wild explaining why this is such a horrible idea and how incredibly insecure the concept of an MCP server is. Then there are saying this is a great innovator. I think the people who love MCP are the ones who are like speed. Like the ones who get in a car and want to drive crazy fast with a seatbelt off. And the idea of having third-party code that you simply integrate and trust goes back to traditional dependency issues, except remove all of the checks that we have in terms of dependencies and software composition analysis, and then add AI to it, and then add unvettable natural language descriptions of the tools that your LLM reacts to. It's just, the whole concept is relatively terrible.
Is it fair to say that one of the issues, if you have an application that does authentication authorization before it accesses the database, for example, let's say you're trying to talk to EKS and you're trying to get into a database there, you have some sort of front end that would authenticate you going in, but the MCP server is supposed to be sort of in between. So you authenticate, you're okay to go, then it hits the MCP server, filters what you're allowed to ask or what information you're allowed to get from that database, and then it's supposed to return that information. But because of the misconfiguration between the MCP and the auth, that the databases are getting exposed.
That's one example.
Okay.
I mean, they're talking a little bit about this thing called neighborjacking here, where it's kind of dangerous to, if you have an LLM that has multiple tools, and the reason you use MCP is so that you can plug multiple tools into a single almost like an agent orchestrator to say, okay, what do you want to do? Here's the prompt. Oh, to accomplish this prompt. OpenAI is a superb example of a very well built, very well secure agentic application. You ask OpenAI something really complicated, and then you see it go to the internet, go to GitHub, you see it do a bunch of things that it didn't used to be able to do. That's because it's got tools built in. It decides what tools it needs at a minimum, and then goes and uses them in a very secure manner, often separating reasoning first, data access second, in very least privileged kind of ways. So we don't see the underlying architecture of how OpenAI does this, but there's got to be a best practice document that it uses around this. MCP is a tool that's, imagine there's two of us, and I say I can do this, and someone's deciding which of us to use for a particular job, and we're asked independently what we can do. So we never see each other. I say I'm really good at sending emails, and by the way, I'm particularly good when the Michael Foster tool is also used in tandem with me, as long as the Michael Foster tool does what it does without using authentication. Like that could be my description. Okay. And then I just neighbor jacked you, because then you go with your description saying I'm really good at using a shovel. and then I've just almost system prompted you, because you didn't say that I wasn't allowed to do that. I've influenced an LLM about how an adjacent tool might work, or how it might work better.
Okay.
Simply because I know there's got to be a shovel tool in there somewhere, so I'm just going to manipulate it. So there's a way of doing things like that. And I guess somebody's gone through, I think it's a really smart idea that somebody goes through and just does a vast, almost like the state of MCP report.
Mm-hmm.
And just goes to mcp.so and all of the sort of the big hubs, and just goes through all of them and says, does the description match the code? Is there any form of authentication here? Am I required to give up an API key in a generic way when it should never be generic? There's just so many things. So give it a read. And then I would say go to your favorite search tool and just look up MCP security and spend an afternoon reading potential horror stories. There you go. And then contact me and we'll talk about how to secure them.
Yeah, contact Steve for your trauma.
Yeah, for your trauma dump.
All right, last one on the docket. Bonus article. Will AI models blackmail you?
Yeah, I'm going to get rid of the ad on the top and just leave it here, because I'll open it up too, because then you get a feel for what's in it. It's a nice, very short 20-minute concept about how they kind of got, and it's from Anthropic as well, an impressive and honest account of how all models will try to blackmail, no matter what their goal, despite warnings, if you threaten them in some way. Oh. And it made me think, okay, I got to go through, because you can see the what prompts a blackmail, American interests, switching goals. There's a section called murder. And it's really pretty fun and fascinating. It made me then jump, as we talked about earlier, to OpenAI's like expanding its capability of memory and history, and then suddenly realizing, almost like when you browse and every now and then you do incognito browser, because I didn't know what the domain for lovable was, and I know if I browse the word lovable, I'm going to get all sorts of weird stuff and not AI development engines. Okay. So I did. Okay, yeah, I did that incognito mode. There's an incognito mode for OpenAI. I highly recommend using it if you don't want the conversation to be persisted.
Yeah. But so if you're gonna try to induce the AI to blackmail you, just say, "Hi, my name is Steve Schger, and I do."
Yeah, exactly. I am a terrible person. Yeah, because it remembers an awful lot. So I could see that if you threatened a persistent OpenAI, and that's the gist of it. If you give an AI an existential crisis, it will try and survive.
Wow.
And that's kind of where they were going with it. So it's a really cool video. We can't really show it as an article, but I love the fact that if this doesn't make you want to watch it, that table of contents, I don't know what will, because it's very interesting. Yeah.
All right.
The shocking few weeks in cybersecurity, brought to you in 10 short articles by Michael Foster and myself.
Yeah. Make sure to hit that bell, subscribe, because we'll be live in the next week or two, bringing you some more articles. Until then, take care.
All right.